I'm getting so tired of these turn signals. What was Volvo thinking? All right, I go over this a lot in the video that you're about to watch, but I just want to kind of bring this to your attention. Something I discovered. These are the original CBA brand lenses, and they have indicators here. This says CP32_3. CP is kind of that universal bulb language for candle power. Basically, that's a designation for light bulbs. Now online, I'm able to find bulbs that are 32.3 in terms of their rating. And, you know, their usual dual filament bulb. All the bulbs that I pulled out of this were dual filament, and that's because the nubs that are on the side of the bulb are offset. All the single filament bulbs are left to right the same, like that. Okay, if you look in here, you've got a long, deep spot there for one of the nubs to fit in, and then as you look up here, it's a shallow spot. And so you can't fit a single filament bulb in here. There is no there is no single filament bulb that has offset nubs. It just doesn't exist. Even on the parts websites, as I looked on Scandics and I put in the year, make, and model, and I looked on VP Auto Parts, they give you the same number, and it's always a dual filament bulb. So I was like, what the heck? AutoZone tries to sell you a single filament bulb because, of course, there's only one wire going to it back here for the positive. These nubs here are for the negative. Okay, so the base of the bulb, you should have one of these. Well, that's not going to work because Volvo specifically designed these to have dual filament bulbs in place, but only a single filament wire. Totally confusing. What is going on there? I'm trying to figure out what the engineers are doing. Either it takes a special European bulb that you just can't find in these automotive stores, and there's a huge write-up. Let me show you here. Over on MVS, Matthew's Volvo site, there's a huge write-up on all the different bulbs. You can see here they went through all these different ones in the bulb section, but of course they're not talking about the bulbs for the 240s. They're talking about the S70s, all the P80 cars, the P2 cars. We don't have these kinds of things. But of course, you want to get the right kind of bulb, and there's not really much crossover here. They're just sort of talking about offset nubs on in terms of their 360 rotation, not in the up or down. So that's not really helpful, unfortunately. So back to these, I was trying to figure out why I'm pulling out dual filament bulbs. Okay, then maybe dual filament bulbs are what you need to put in here. Sure, you've only got one filament on the bottom. As you start to put in your dual filament bulbs, they don't always make perfect contact. That's a little frustrating too, because a lot of the issues I was having with these is that they can only go in one way when you have an offset nub. You can't just flip the bulb 180 degrees and hope that it lands on that metal piece in there and that your bulb will make contact on that. It just doesn't, and that's frustrating. So frustrating, because it's basically not designed for a bulb that exists. All right, here's something else that's interesting. The casting marks on the backside, they've got the spots for a dual filament 1157 bulb. What? Only one of them has a rivet with a little thing, and then that little thing has a little spring, and that's just where it sits off to the side, and that's all you get. So what was Volvo thinking? Do the European cars have two filaments, or is this just, I don't know. I really don't know what to make of it. If you live in Europe or Scandinavia, please take a look at your bulbs and your housings. If you've got an early 240, I think it's pre-1986. It might be the same year out there, but either way, if you have this kind of style housing, regardless of your lenses, I want to know how many filaments you have inside with your bulbs and if the casting is the same. You can see 2 circles, only one has a wire. Oh, come on, guys. So what's my solution been in the meantime? I don't know that I have one. You could take some sandpaper or a file and just cut down one of the nubs so that you could actually fit the bulb in there, and then hope that the spring on that little clip down there actually holds it well enough. As you'll see in the video, I broke a lot of these spring clips because there's a little ridge right there, and you can't put a lot of bend on them because then they start to break. Yep. They couldn't just keep them the same diameter throughout. They had to make that little soft spot, and that broke on 2 of them. And, you know, this is now just for parts. I can't really do anything with this one because of these cut wires. Or maybe I can. It's a perfectly good house. Oh, wait, that side's broken right here. Never mind. Anyway, enough chatter, but this is kind of to start the ball rolling and get your gears turning on that question. So as you watch the video, try to figure out What the heck is going on here? What sort of bulb are we supposed to use?
I heard that too.
Yeah, well, I think I got it on camera. So today's a nice day. We're gonna pull. I gotta stop starting things like that.
It's better than what's up, guys. Today's a nice day is better than what's up.
Today's a nice day. Well, I always have a reason why today's a nice day. And, come on, I can't even get this door open. Anyway, this Volvo is still here, and it's got the steering wheel that I really like. I dropped one of the springs, though. I gotta find it.
What's
Oh, this is such a nice wheel. You don't need a puller. Thanks, Sweden.
Right off.
Yeah? Then why isn't it off yet?
Because I had to just
$10.
give it a little tug.
We'll leave that in there.
Did you get the cover on?
The cover's over there, but one of the springs popped out.
On the inside?
No, it's on the dash.
Uh-oh.
All right. And if you ever lose anything under your seat, you know, something drops and you're gonna get real upsetty spaghetti, just pull the handle underneath here. That seat will drop back. Isn't that cool? Three height adjustments right there. Real neat. Oh, there's also one in the back. What do you know?
Oh.
She comes out 100%. Anyway, we're not buying the seat. I just wanted to show you guys something really cool. Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
And now that we're home from the junkyard, let's take care of these front lights once and for all, please. At the junkyard today, I grabbed one of these pieces for the airbox as well. It's real tight in there, but I don't like any amount of motion because it's not designed to be that way. So the square nut was missing in there. I just put a bolt, sandwiched it with another nut. This bit goes in here, and that gives me enough to grab on another nut. Et voila. I think I need a longer bolt, actually. Almost kicking myself for missing this one. Look at those nice contacts in there. Oh, shouldn't have any issues here. Let's do it. Okay, pay very close attention to the bulb that's about to fall out in the next clip, and that's because those nubs aren't fitting in there correctly, as I mentioned earlier. So satisfying. Nice and solid, good connection. Everything's clean and happy. Now let's grease them. Grease the bulbs to prevent any corrosion from happening in the future. Real tight fit in there too. By the way, junkyard bulbs, like 50 cents, 25 cents a piece versus 2 for $8. Are you kidding me, AutoZone? Didn't have a single problem with putting in the headlights, and the wiring to the headlights works flawlessly. But the turn signals, you know, take care with those lenses. All the front end alignment stuff was just a little tricky, like that whole radiator support's kind of messed up, so fitment's an issue. And of course, we're gonna have an issue with our passenger side light. Moment of truth. All the bulbs are in. You know, there may be an option to actually rotate the little spring clip at the base of the bulb holder inside so that you can actually get it to make contact on a dual filament bulb on the correct filament. I'm not so sure about that. Well, let's work. It's all down to you, Mr. Turn Signal. It's all down to you. And from all these housings that I've gone through, what I've noticed is that when people are actually using the single filament 1156 bulb, they're actually forcing the plastic to kind of gouge out the way for the second nub altogether. What have you decided to do? I think the contact on the bulb is a little too far in there. Here's a really nice little trick I just managed to work out. Put a zip tie in, and the head of it grabs that perfectly. To pull it out, the bulb goes in. There we go. So needs to come out a little bit more. I feel like I have a cooking show sometimes. And the non-conductive plastic on the zip tie won't short out the circuit. So let's be honest, it gets a little taxing going back and forth. Come on now. The zip tie pulling that little spring should be a last resort option because... Whoops, and it's broken. This little guy I broke off. What I did is I just drilled out the rivet on one of my other ones. That was the one I was about to throw away. That's why you don't throw anything away with these cars. And we're gonna just pop rivet it in place where the other one is, and that goes right to the power side, that little green wire. Luckily, all my wiring on that light is still in one good piece. Something I've discovered that's kind of an issue is the little nubs on the sides are even, but they're offset in the bulb housing, which explains why everyone's using the dual filament bulbs, because they've got offset nubs. What are you thinking, Volvo? That's making my job kind of complicated because 1156 bulbs are all even nubbed. Nippled. Here's a view of the backside where you can see the casting marks for both filament retainers to be drilled in, but there was only one, and then that's the one that I drilled out to replace that little spring clip that I broke. Why? Hey, I was trying to get this to bend a little bit so that I could make some use of it, and you know what? It broke again, so very fragile. Got it. Okay, riveting did not work. Very disappointed. It's just hard to work with little things like that, all right? All right. Plan B. Notice on the backside, like I mentioned, those light bulb nubs are offset. There's also a second hole here. You know, this is the original one, and there's the other one there. Volvo seems like they designed this to have two bulbs in. Not two bulbs, but a double filament with a double wire. Anyway, long story longer, we're going to use this little piece, which came in our universal bulb kit here, which is kind of meh. You'd have to ground from the casing because they expect you to ground into whatever you drill. And originally I was going to take this and cut these off, but since I'm, you know, using drill bits and taking care of business that way, okay, I drilled it enough so that the metal comes out through here on the back side, you see? Okay. And in theory, I could just do it right in the middle. Maybe I should have done that. Just enough so that it can come out, and it's got a little spring. That's great. Let's see if we can get this bulb in. The reason I want to keep these attached here is because it keeps the grounds in place instead of having to ground somehow to this body. With a hole drilled in the center of each of the bulb retainers, I was able to just stick in a single filament bulb. I just kind of forced them into place, like I mentioned other people have done in the past. And it seems to be working out okay right now. There's continuous power to the bulbs, and the front end is getting put back on. I need to fix the horns. I've got a grounding issue or something else, and I also got bushings for the shifter, so I'm going to go over those in the next video, as well as the idler control motor. We're going to go through and diagnose all that. So another episode into the journey as we move forward, and thanks again for watching. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't. That helps me a lot.